Welcome back, everybody, to The Arrow. My name's Chandler.
My name's Tony.
Tony, guess what?
What?
We got a special guest.
We do?
Yeah. Dude, she's sitting right in between us, too.
Oh, I didn't even notice her. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry.
Oh, my
here,
gosh.
you know.
Yeah. So we have Marilyn and Chantala from the Beyond Bending podcast here. Welcome, everybody. Warm welcome. Woo, yeah.
So great to be on. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. This is our first like podcast crossover that we've done. We've had a few guests on the podcast before, but we've never had another podcaster on the podcast, let alone another podcaster who does a very similar show to us.
Yeah.
Too. So
It's crazy. Like, if I went back in time and told my high school self, like, oh, you're going to have an Avatar podcast and go on another Avatar podcast and combine forces to just talk about Avatar while you're an adult. And I wouldn't believe it.
yeah, no, seriously. I mean, I think that the Avatar podcasting community right now is pretty strong.
Yeah.
And pretty unified. It's like I don't feel like we're competing
Yeah.
with each other. I feel like
Yeah.
we're all kind of taking up a little bit of a different space in the space, and everybody has kind of a different voice and something valuable to offer.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel like everybody has a different style and like the way that they do their episodes, record, or even different ideas of what they're able to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with the live action, or with the live adaptation coming up, it's just like, I need someone to be hyped with me.
Right. Well, it's crazy because we started this podcast before that news came out.
Yeah.
And I think you started yours before it too, right? Or did you start after?
After.
That was like, yeah,
Oh,
that was right
yeah.
after.
So we started probably a couple months before that
Yeah.
news came out.
We started like 4 months before.
Yeah. And
Oh my
then
gosh.
the news hit, and then we were like, okay, so what do we do now? Like, I mean, we keep doing what we're doing, but like, what happens in like a year or two when this show comes out and we're possibly still recording, you know? Like, what happens? So I think that's still a question we have to ask and figure out. But before we get started, make sure everybody go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Arrowpod. We have a YouTube channel. Tony?
Yeah.
If you go search The Arrow Podcast on YouTube, you'll find us. We got some videos up. There's a few.
Hopefully some more one day.
We're really we are working on it. It's going to take a lot more than just the effort of the beautiful Marc over there across the room. We really appreciate you, Marc. You the homie.
Woo.
And yeah, we're going to get started today. We're going to be talking about, do you want to plug your stuff really quick?
Oh, yeah. Follow us on social media, Beyond Betting Podcast. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our website, whatever. Yeah.
They got a website. Dude, we're behind.
And they got shirts.
They got shirts too.
They got shirts.
If you're looking at this video, or if you go look at the Instagram video that we put up, you got to show the logo. Like, they definitely have shirts. We can get a picture of the back of your shirt.
Yeah.
Like, after we're
We'll
done
get that
today.
afterwards.
Yeah, we got you.
It's not on sale yet. I'm working on it.
Oh,
We
well,
got to get people hyped for it. That's
Yeah,
the
okay,
thing.
true.
I'm gonna buy one. That your logo's-
We got to make the demand now before we make the shirts. That's
Aw.
the thing.
Yeah. So, Marilyn, we're gonna have you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey through Avatar, what nation you belong to, and then we're gonna get into some discussion about what all of our hopes are and some expectations and some speculations that we might have about the live action series.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, I'm Marilyn. And then this is, hi, Marilyn. I don't know. I went to film school, so I took a class in sound design, so I think that's just like, it made me open up my eyes to like this whole other side of television and movies that no one really cares about, I feel like. And so I definitely like coming on to the whole podcasting thing, and I was inspired to start Beyond Betting Podcast because I was listening to Potterless, and Mike Schubert, the host and creator, he's just like a regular guy, just like an engineer, and he just made his own podcast, and he just loved doing what he was doing. So if you check out Potterless, like my structure is kind of the same as his, where he recaps and he just like talks about it and jumps back and forth. So that was where my motivation came in, and then with the announcement of the live adaptation, I was like, oh hell yeah. I don't know, just like that resurgence made me want to talk about Avatar, and it's just like, oh wow, this show is actually my favorite show of all time, and it would be awesome to just like revisit it, and so yeah, that's how the podcast was born.
Yeah. And then, what nation? You're sitting between an airbender and an earthbender right now.
Waterbender.
Okay. Who else? I think all of our other guests have said water.
I think so, actually.
What about Nicole? Did Nicole say fire or did she say water? I think she said water.
Water?
Tim definitely said water.
Yeah.
And then John.
I think he said water as well. I want to say water.
Someone can correct us.
Sure.
Luckily we don't have the kind of fans yet that go back and like nitpick every single little thing that we say. But when you get there, you've made it, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm ready. Bring it on. But so we're going to talk about some stuff about the live action show that's going to be coming out at the earliest, probably late next year. Probably a little bit. I would not mind if it came out later. I want them to put as much time and love into that show as possible. But actually, you had a really great interview on your podcast.
Yes.
If you want to talk about that, where they broke some major news to you.
Oh gosh, yeah. So Eddie and I, my
sorry, I haven't heard it yet.
Oh,
You're spoiling this for me.
Eddie and I, my husband, we went to Anime Expo.
Yeah.
And we interviewed Michaela Murphy, the voice of Toph, and Olivia Hack, the voice of Tylee. And so they like brought us to the back, and I was sitting so close to Michaela. This is how close we were, and I was trying not to make too much eye contact. I was just like, "So how's your day going?" And it was just I was trying not to freak out too much. And Michaela, she met up with Mike and Brian just like in May, and she was telling us this about how she wanted to pick their brains, and she was like, how's the process going, like what's going on? And they were like, oh, we're definitely taking our time, we don't want to, like after M. Night.
Oh my gosh.
They want to do it right, they want to make it right, and in doing so wanted to do an all-Asian cast and to open it up just like outside of the U.S., open casting calls and just try to find, like the next Aang, the next Zuko, even if that person is like all the way across the world in China. And so they're planning on casting in fall and shooting in spring. And then right now I think they're working on like the CGI stuff. And so I think Colin from Legend of Portalcast said that. I don't know where he got this from. I kind of didn't question it. I was like, okay, this is true. One of the producers, I think it was like, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name, but he saw like a clip of this CGI Appa.
Giancarlo Volpe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he started crying, like good tears crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. Why'd you tell me this, Colin? I can't handle this right now.
Well, I mean, I remember seeing just like the concept art. And not the fake one that's going around Facebook that I have a lot of problems with like this Aang that looks like he's 27 years old. But the one with it's just like almost kind of like a stick figure with Appa in like at like the South Pole. Even that makes me like emotional.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine seeing like real Appa flying around in CG.
I'm not ready. I'm glad that they're taking their time. I'm not ready. I gotta physically, mentally like put myself in the like mindset to be okay to actually watch this when it comes out.
Tony's like, I got at least 800 gym days until I'm ready to watch
exactly.
this. Oh man. But speaking of casting, why don't we start there? Because I was wondering about how you all feel about casting. I personally would prefer them to cast people who are kind of unknown.
Yes.
Unknown talent, right?
I mean, yeah, that'd be.
I totally agree.
Yeah, like you were mentioning, like they're literally scouring like the world, like they would for the Avatar, to find who's going to play these roles, and I think that's absolutely amazing to give everybody the opportunity. And I feel like that would most likely end up with people that don't really have a name for themselves,
right?
But have that talent to bring these characters to life,
right? Like there's tons of actors and actresses that I love that I would love to see in these roles, and I'll talk about a couple of them in a minute. But I think that they're like these characters have been so mystified to me that I don't want someone's face who I know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go for it.
Yeah, just I think the good way to go is what you said, casting unknowns, because look at Harry Potter, look at Stranger Things. It's like you get these kids that are unknown and you watch them grow in front of your eyes.
Right.
And every year that they grow, they're kind of a new person. So they bring like this new element, like in all the Harry Potter or Stranger Things seasons. Every season is different.
Right. But it's also kind of believable too, because you've got kids kind of growing up, going through puberty.
Yeah.
They change, so their characters should be changing as well, right? And like the flavor and like the atmosphere of the show should be changing, which is kind of like another thing that we just talked about a little bit was how do you feel like how do you think they're going to deal with the idea that you're going to cast, you know, they love to cast people older than they actually are, right? So if you're getting a 12-year-old, they're going to cast like a 15 or 16-year-old, right? Or that's what they've traditionally done. And it doesn't matter like what age they cast. For me to have a 12-year-old Aang that's believable, he needs to be pretty young. But especially teenage boys, like they don't stay the same that long. You know what I mean? Like eventually Aang's gonna have some like hair on his chest and everything. That, like how are they gonna manage that? Do you think that they change the timeline of the show? Do you think that they change a little bit of the lore of the show to be able to fit like a kid who's growing up faster than you can grow up in animation? Like, what do you think happens?
I think it might be possible to change the timeline, or not, but not by much. I mean,
Like
I feel
it
like
happens over 3 years as opposed to 1 year.
Yes. Yeah, I think that would be a little more believable. Just because, I mean, I think the thing that brings Aang and shows that how much talent he has is that he mastered all these elements within less than a year, and it's something that's completely unheard of. So it's kind of just like if it was an extended period of time, like a believable period of time, which would be like over 3 years because of just the aging process in general. I feel like that would kind of take away a little bit from it.
Right.
But if we were to, I mean, stretch it to maybe 2-3 years, I think that might be okay and possibility.
I feel like in the sense of like kids growing up, 2 years might be like the minimum. I can't see them doing like, oh, it's only been a year, but he definitely has a mustache now, you know? Like, I mean, obviously they're not going to let him go on set with a mustache, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think they tried doing that in the M. Night movie, right? Like they said 3 years, like, or maybe, it's been so long since I've seen the movie, and I'm kind of glad I forgot.
Yeah, honestly, I blocked it out of my memory.
I've never
so
seen it.
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
I haven't actually seen the whole thing. I've missed parts, and I've only seen like parts of that beginning and parts at the end, but never the whole movie.
Yeah, but it would be interesting to change that timeline because I don't know, like it would make sense because they are in a war and wars can go on for so long, and especially with like these kid actors, like they will grow up and every season takes time, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm less concerned about like a Zuko or a Sokka kind of growing older, because they're already kind of at that age where you expect them to start to mature up. But for like an Aang or a Toph kind of casting, like those are the ones that would be a little more concerning for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely a different medium, like a different platform. Like with Netflix in general, like we're going from animation to live adaptation. We're going from Nickelodeon, where you have to make it G, to Netflix that can do whatever the fuck they want. Wait, can I cuss in this podcast?
Sure.
Whatever the F they want.
It's fine.
Oh.
Or I'll just put a disclaimer at the front. It just doesn't matter. Speak your truth.
And then with Netflix too, if they do change, because like with the Netflix episodes, and this is what I love, that they have no time restraint. Like it doesn't have to be 43 minutes. They don't have to restrain themselves for a commercial. It's whatever the editor feels is right. And with the Nickelodeon episodes, you could tell like they only had 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure like Mike and Brian and everyone attached to the show was like really frustrated they couldn't include everything, and so that's what inspired them to like branch out into comic books.
Right.
And so there's just so much they could do.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. The 22-minute thing that comes up for me a lot when I'm like watching these episodes, and the Blue Spirit, for example, so much happens in that episode, and you're like, wait, it's been 15 minutes, and I feel like I know everything about all these characters. Even the stupid cat. What was its name in the Blue Spirit? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
He goes into like the greenhouse and there's that cat.
Yeah.
And Miyuki or something like that is the cat's name.
It starts with an M for sure. I know.
Yeah. And
I
I'm just
remember.
like, wow, this cat is a character, and it was on screen for 15 seconds, and they did such a good job just fleshing everything out. And so when they have this amount of time where they can do whatever they want to in whatever amount of time that they need,
Yeah.
like that's really exciting.
Yeah. And then-
Miyuki.
Huh?
Miyuki?
Isn't that what I said?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
But that being said, in terms of like the casting, if you were kind of to have like a fan cast of like, you know, actors and actresses that you know and love to be in the show, even if like their presence was going to take away, like who would you just want to see like in the show? I've got 4 names, but 2 of them are for the same role.
Dante Basco. No.
Well.
I don't know, honestly. I don't really have an idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put too much thought into that.
the whole cast of Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes. Yes, that movie was so good. Did you see it, Tony?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. I was thinking about like a Constance Wu as Ursa, like for
Ooh.
flashbacks would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But speaking of Constance Wu, I actually have someone from Fresh Off the Boat. His name is Forrest Wheeler, and he plays Emery. I don't know if you've
No, I haven't
ever
seen
watched
it.
Fresh Off the Boat. He's like the middle child of the family.
Yes.
And I feel like if I were to make anybody like the star, I could see him totally as an Aang.
Yeah.
Like he would be such a good, and he's 15 years old, so he's like at that age right now where he's gonna like age out of the role in like another year and a half. But I would love to see him, or you know, like a nice cameo from Randall Park or Ken Jeong as the Cabbage Man.
As a Cabbage Man?
Yeah, like those two, I think they would easily be able to like sneak into the show and then like sneak off. I think Randall Park would be able to do it a little bit easier than Ken Jeong. I think Ken Jeong is so like, I don't know. I feel like Ken Jeong has like this other level of stardom that Randall Park hasn't gotten to
Yeah.
yet in Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like Ken Jeong being the Cabbage Man like takes me out of the show, where Randall Park is like, oh, that's funny, you know.
Have you seen those people on Instagram that are like trying to get casted and they just keep dishing out there's this one girl that's gunning for Ty Lee. Have you seen her Instagram? It's
I
insane.
haven't. I've seen a girl who cosplays as Azula a lot.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Ty Lee, though,
Lily
specifically. I've seen a
Raimundo.
couple one, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure. If you showed me her Instagram, I probably would recognize it, but specifically, I can't remember.
I scroll down the Instagram enough to like recognize accounts that go over and over
Yeah.
and over again. So if I've seen her, like if you showed me a picture, I would definitely
Yeah.
recognize her. I'm sure.
Yeah, I think she's 16, and there's like a shot where she's on the wall of China, like doing that backflip thing, and it's incredible.
I
like
haven't, I haven't
I've
seen
not seen
that.
yeah, like with Tom Holland, like how he kind of is able to do his own stunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is able to do all of the Ty Lee stunts, which is
Ooh,
insane.
that'd be really cool.
And that's like another thing is that casting wise, like you're either going to be casting people who have martial arts experience, or
Yeah.
you're going to be training people for like 6-8 months to get that experience, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing that I think can inevitably delay the show, or at least certain parts of the show, because they can go through and shoot all the slice of life stuff and all the conversations, but when
Yeah.
it comes to doing like the action, like you're gonna have to go back and reshoot that,
Yeah.
you know, and then when are conditions right to reshoot in specific scenes, right?
Locations
Like
and
if you're gonna
stuff,
be
yeah.
if you're gonna be doing martial arts in the South Pole, for example, right? Like, or the North Pole,
Yeah.
right? And that's some landscapes and things. Do you follow Brian Konietzko on Instagram? I think he's the one who's been doing like location scouting.
Yeah.
And he just
No,
like
for a
puts on
while.
his
Yeah.
story, just like these landscapes, these vast landscapes, and
So beautiful.
and he's not saying I'm location scouting, but it's like, dude, you're definitely location scouting, right?
So, yeah, I'm excited for that for sure. Just to have like some beautiful landscapes to work with and everything to tell the story, because when you think back, they were literally all over the world, so everything was different. Like just a handful of episodes, like everything would change, and to really take that into account and put them into those situations and be able to have their proper time to record there, I think that would just bring it to life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the nations and the kingdoms are characters of their own
Mhm.
Right.
in the show. And I keep going back to that crappy movie, but that was one of the things they missed out on. They were just so focused on like horrible CGI, they didn't really like use the natural wonders of the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I definitely feel like
Yeah.
they're trying to go into more of that.
Right. I mean, we live on such a big, beautiful planet, right?
Mhm.
There's like some of it's dying, but there's plenty of stuff left that's still really beautiful out there. And so I really think that, yeah, especially if all of your money is going to be going into animating Appa. like really, like how much of their budget is going to be going into animating Appa?
Oh yeah, they have to end every episode with them flying away on Appa. So I mean,
He saves the day a lot.
And I'm thinking like how many, like there's probably going to be episodes where they just don't have him, like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like think about Game of Thrones, right? Like how we compare Game of Thrones to Avatar a lot.
Yeah.
for not the best reasons, I think. But Game of Thrones did really well in terms of like showing their cards when they could.
Mhm.
But there were a couple of episodes where like the dragons looked like blankets. It looked like a bunch of blankets. Like the CG didn't look very good. They always made Ghost look amazing.
well, yeah, with the handful of episodes that they had him, and they're just
Right.
like, well, we can't afford him right now. So
Well, I mean, what's more expensive, Ghost or a dragon?
Yeah.
And it's like, what do we want to show?
oh my god, that's what I'm kind of nervous for with the whole bending, like, and how that's going to look or be portrayed and everything, because it's just, I feel like it's going to be really difficult to make it look like what I expect it to look, or what, like, how they displayed it in,
Yeah.
In the
in the
show.
cartoons.
I don't even know what I want it to look like.
Well, that's the thing. They can build on it because I would say all of season 1 is just like all these baby steps.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you see Katara growing in her bending, and hopefully the CGI will grow as
Yeah.
Netflix makes these seasons.
Well, yeah. Hopefully the money, the
Yeah,
amount of
the
money that they
budget.
get grows too. I mean, just a show on this scale, like they already have to have, and if Netflix is greenlighting, I'm assuming they have like a really good budget,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm assuming they have like a budget that they can work with.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a budget where we can have like a lot of Appa. Like if Appa's Lost Days happened in the first season, like I don't know if we would be getting that episode in the first season,
Yeah.
just because of like how much CGI they're gonna have to put into that episode. Giant boars fighting Appa, and like Appa just flying around all the time.
Yeah, in the
It-
circus, the fire, the flames, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
yeah, it
so
would have been way
much.
too difficult.
And in my head, I can imagine what water bending and fire bending and earth bending could look like, but I can't imagine what air bending might look like. And I'm not a big fan of like the glowing energy looking kind of idea of air bending that we kind of, like you need to be able to see it, but it also needs to look
Oh.
natural.
Going back to the movie,
Right.
like the way they portrayed it really was like there would be like you would see everything else moving around it. So if like you would see like the trees or you would see like some dust build up, and then with those movements be able to see it. So it's kind of just like some visual cue that something's happening there. But it wasn't like, like the show where it's just like you see like the lines and like the blue lines just
Yeah.
flurrying around and everything, just so the audience know what's exactly happening.
Behind the camera, and there's like a bunch of fans and just like hair blowing.
Yeah. So you see like everything, the surroundings kind of reacting to the airbending.
Right.
I feel like they can just build on that.
You can tell by looking at how annoyed Katara is, because her hair is just always in her face. She's like, Aang, really? Come on.
Yeah, you have to do this right now. Right now. What about just like expressions, right? Like the facial expressions that we get. That's something that I think is they're gonna have to do a lot of work around how to portray the emotions. I don't know if either of you saw the live action Lion King, remake recently?
I still haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a good yeah.
Wait, have you?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I actually like it. It's fun. I just think that there's so much in the animation that the characters bring expressively and emotionally that I just don't get from like a lion's face.
Yeah.
And I feel like similarly here with like the every single emotional expression in Avatar is so grandiose, and it's things that a regular human face cannot do. You know, it looks natural in animation, but like a human face can't do that.
I mean, it's just you would have to really upplay these things, but I feel like that's really hard depending on like your ability and your acting of being able to do that, but not go too far into
Right.
it, and like it seems kind of corny. I don't know, because even with the progression of age, I wanted to mention that I like that the very beginning, the first season is majority of it is really playful. I mean, they're literally
Mm-hmm.
just kids like traveling the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like there's no serious tones for majority of that season. And then once we start going into season 2 and season 3, that's when they start maturing a lot more and start
Right.
becoming the characters that we know who they become, trying to save the world. And I feel like that's with the acting premise of, even if they're not the best actors in the world in the beginning, it's very goofy. They should be kids anyways.
Yeah.
But as it progresses and their acting ability progress, I feel like they can get into the serious roles, and probably the darker tone that Netflix will probably take with it.
Yeah.
Darker tone.
With acting too, like bouncing off of what you said, like I think as much as the actor's performance, the directors have to be spot on.
Oh yeah.
Like take James Gunn and Dave Bautista. Like Dave Bautista isn't gonna win an Oscar, but
Mhm.
James Gunn definitely knows how to use him
Mhm.
and rewrote the whole character of Drax to fit Dave Bautista.
Yeah, Drax is not that. But I mean, no, but he plays well in those movies.
Yeah. And so definitely finding that tone is going to be a challenge, because I'm pretty sure they're going to go for a more grounded approach, because it is like the real world.
Mhm.
They're going to
Mhm.
have like all of these physical elements and props, and just like the whole season 1 is camping. They're just camping everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny, one of my friends from childhood loves Harry Potter, but he hated the 7th movie because he was like, it was like the 7th movie, that book was amazing, but they made the 7th movie just Harry Potter goes camping, and I hated it. So, like, I don't know why that just came up in my head, but
Yeah, and then that whole movie could have been better if they did like a psychological thriller element in that,
Mhm.
and go into like the mindset of this necklace that's like weighing them down, making them think all these awful thoughts. And it just goes back to I took a film class in over at UC Santa Cruz, and my my senior exit was about like the 5 senses in film. It was like touch, taste, smell, all of that. And I feel like with these big Hollywood movies, they forget to incorporate these elements. They forget to make us feel, like the fire when someone like fire punches, And
Right.
so yeah, it's just like cinematography, editing, all of these components. Like the show really needs to make us feel like that world exists.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about just how much I think this show could pull a little bit, like it can take some advice in terms of like visual tone from both Stranger Things and
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. I think that they can do a lot. I think just Game of Thrones because of how CG heavy it was. But there's actually so many great visuals in that show that I think match the scale of like what this show is going to have to be.
Yeah.
Right? That they can really pull for that. And then I think also Stranger Things, what they do with like the whole kind of kids foiling the plans of adults, and a lot of this stuff happening in broad daylight, and also kids being funny and whimsical while also having their lives threatened. Like I'm like that's actually like all of the elements that
Yeah.
Like we really need
Yeah.
to pull into this show, like actually like verbatim. And so I think it's cool because probably, I mean, I don't know how like Netflix works, but like I don't know, like I think that they can just like watch some of that and pull, you know, adapt it to the themes and like how this show works, obviously. But I think those two shows really are going to be, in my head, are kind of a really important framework as to some of the things that we are trying to pull off.
Yeah.
Right. Especially, I think Game of Thrones at night with like their lighting and stuff like that. It's not all candlelit, but it's all candlelit, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Stranger Things, the amount of the amount of fun that those kids have, while also having so many near-death experiences.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never really thought about it that way, but it is extremely similar. Like the humor that they have within the show, but also it's just like also there's like horrible things happening and people are missing, and it's just like it's a serious situation, but they're able to bring in humor in themselves and kind of and when their life isn't in danger, have that day by day where we're kind of still kids and we're still trying to live our lives.
Yeah. I want to switch a little bit to what episodes do you think, just like talking about some specific episodes, and I'm really kind of focusing a lot on season 1 because I think that this first season of the live action show is really going to make it or break it for them.
Yeah.
Which I'm really confident in it, but it's going to make it or break it for them.
Yeah.
But what are some episodes that you think you're really excited to see come to the big screen? Some things that they might want to omit, moments that they might want to omit, or things that you might want to see them change or anything like that?
I don't know. I like find myself when I'm doing my podcast and breaking down each episode, even with like The Great Divide. I just recently did The Great Divide, and everyone just hates that episode. They think it's a filler, but I like, after analyzing, I actually really love it. It's just a story about these refugees that are trying to go to like the last decent place on Earth. And these two clans that just hate each other, but at the end, you know, they unite and they just get past their differences.
Yeah, your episode definitely changed my thought process on that.
Yes.
I still don't think it's not the worst episode. I still don't like it.
Yeah.
But it definitely gives it a lot more value, like the analysis that you that you did on it. I really liked it.
For me personally, with that episode, I wish it was a little bit more memorable, or that there was a callback to them. Like something that we talked about was like when we go to Ba Sing Se, like, oh, they're there, or in the final battle when they're trying to take back the city, they come in out of nowhere because they're this one huge tribe that can, you know, fight or something. Like, instead of just having them, you know, be a part of the story, they're together, we know where they're going. Okay, see ya. Like, you don't exist anymore. Like,
One and
you know,
done.
yeah, like bring them back and incorporate them if you had a whole episode about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, they're in the Rise of Kyoshi book. So
Ooh,
call back to that.
okay, nice.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll read it one day.
Yeah, no, you won't. I'll send you the videos. There's videos that like break down the whole thing that I haven't watched yet.
Well, no, but I want to like have the whole literary experience.
I don't think you're gonna read it, Chan.
I just
It's
don't.
over 400 pages.
I just don't want to do it with my eyes. Can I do it with my ears? Audio.
Yeah, I wish. They don't have it. Yeah, I checked.
I know you did.
With that, talking about the first season, do you guys think they're gonna do the whole first season as the first season that they come out on Netflix, or that they might break it up some way?
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't know.
You know, I was wondering, I feel like a lot of people have always wondered what would the show be like if they introduced Toph the first season. They could play with that. They could definitely change, because I don't know, they could just do anything they want. They could totally subvert everything we know, and give us a whole new experience, a whole new world, even introduce new characters. It's insane.
See, that's the hard thing for me to think about. Like, me personally, Avatar content in general, I'm just giving more. Just whatever it is, just provide that with me, to me, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
But I feel like straying too much from what it is now, I feel people would just get angry at that or revolt and be like, this isn't my avatar type of thing. I'm so for fleshing out these episodes and making them as long as, you know, they want, or even making them into multiple episodes to really tell this story. But I don't see it like going too far out where it's like, you know, introducing different characters too much. Like that would be an amazing thing to see, because it's just like something we wouldn't expect. But I think majority of the fans wouldn't really agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you, because as much as I have faith in the creators of the show, I don't have as much faith in just people in general. Like, to not get mad about things that I don't think that they should get mad about.
Yeah.
But I mean, people get mad about whatever they want to, and that's fine.
People were getting mad about Lion King. They're like, oh, isn't the same? I'm just like, you wanted it to be frame by frame the same?
Dude, no one wants to see that. We saw what happened with Watchmen. Like, it was frame by frame the same, and that movie was not great. I think to someone who doesn't like the book Watchmen, it might be fine, or who hasn't read it. But like, after you read that book and then you watch that movie, you're like, nah, man, you missed the mark. But yeah, I think I would love them to like play with ideas like introducing Toph in season 1, or even I just had this idea of like, what if Azula was there from the get-go. Ooh. as kind of like still doing Azula things, but you know, Zhao is still in the picture, and Azula and Zhao are both kind of opposite sides, adversarying for Zuko, and it's more of like a rivalry between Azula and Zuko, but like a friendly rivalry, before in the second season it kind of turns into like, oh, I'm hunting you now.
I don't know about that. I truly love the almost that you feel like it's a hate between the two siblings before anything happens, and then you find those little instances where we do see that Zuko sees like, that's still my sister, you know. I still care for her, even though she's hunting me down and at a point trying to kill me.
She literally says, I'm gonna celebrate being an only child.
Exactly. And even in that episode specifically, when he was terrified that she wouldn't make it, and I feel like I like that a little bit more, rather than them kind of possibly getting along before, you know, full out like rage and I hate you and like I want to kill you.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Azula. She is one of my favorite villains of all time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, easily. And the fact that she's extremely complex, and they added, and once you go back and rewatch the show, like they only really started adding that level of complexity in like the last maybe like 30% of the show. Not even 30%. Like the back half of the second season, they really started adding her complexity. And they like super added a lot of complexity in the last 5 episodes. And yet she goes down as like one of the most like one of the villains that you like dislike the most, but you empathize with the most at the same time. You know what I mean?
And it's also fun watching her be bad, especially towards like,
she's so good at it.
Yeah, like Long Fang, or taking out other bad guys to be the baddest. Oof.
Well, it's there's this level of satisfaction that I get from watching someone, you know, be a terrible person, and then they get, you know, and then they lose to granted a terrible person, but they lost, and it's like really satisfying to see her like dethrone literally, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like just take out Long Fang like that. So yeah, I don't know, but I liked your idea too, Tony, about bringing back the Yangs and the Ganjins. I like the idea, I think you and I talked about it before, of getting to see what other people were doing on the day of Black Sun. There's no way that there weren't like armies and militia like fighting the Fire Nation that day. And getting to see a little bit more of what other characters are doing. And then I also think that they can omit the Uncle Iroh creepily creeping on June. I think we're past that.
I want more of that.
Yeah. How old is June in the show? Because like that just makes it even worse, depending.
30?
30?
Yeah, I'd say around there, right?
I was gonna say if she's like 16, that's
really no way she's under 20. No,
she's drinking, it's fine.
Yeah.
What I do want to see is we explore like the fire temples and the air temples. We don't really see the water or the earth temples.
And we know they exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I just love watching them open like these secret doors that can only be opened with bending. And so just to see like a very extravagant water or earth door open, just
I didn't even think about
stuff.
that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
She triggered me when she said about the doors. That was like a thing in the first season. I was just always harping on how bad the doors looked. Like, I think the air doors looked terrible. Like
the cross between like what is it, 3D and 2D animation?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It was jarring. But I think that if it's all like live action, that it can look pretty cool. Pretty cool. I don't know if I have too much else. I mean, there's tons that I want to say. But we also don't necessarily want to be here for like 2.5 hours. So I'm wondering if you two have any like final thoughts about anything we just talked about.
Well, I could go on for a long time about Asian representation, and oh my gosh, I almost got in an argument on the internet with someone that was they made a comment like, "Oh, white people don't exist" or something, and I'm just like,
I saw that.
Hold me back, Chandler. Please.
Yeah.
Hold me back.
I'm not the person to hold you back, because I'm in several arguments about police brutality right now on Facebook. So, no, I'm the person who argues on Facebook. So, as we've discussed previously in the podcast. So yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for Asian representation. I'm excited for, like, I don't know, I kind of don't want them to go too dark. I want them to, you can make like really great G or PG content. Like, look at Harry Potter. Look at like Eddie and I recently watched Dora the Explorer. Oh my god, that movie.
Was it actually good?
I really liked it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta watch it then.
And everyone gives me crap for wanting to like actively go out to see these kid movies, but it's like, look at all of the kid movies you cherish. Like, grown-ups watched that when you were little, and they dug that too. And so there's like this really negative connotation for like anything kid TV or kid movies. And I think the show would be just as powerful if they did a live action, like, rated PG show. Yeah,
I think there's moments where you can explore that darkness, but I don't think that the darkness should become the focus of the show. I think that there are definitely themes that I think especially themes around grief are the things that I really want them to explore a lot, because those are things that they started to tap the surface level of. That I think they can go deeper into stuff like that, where it's not necessarily dark, but they're not afraid to go sad with it.
Just to mysterious tones.
Yeah, to tackle these issues that I feel like most kid shows try to like ignore or not even address. But look at television. Like, what's great about television, especially with kid shows, is I love creators that always want to push the progressiveness. Like, we got that with Mr. Rogers. Like, he talked about divorce with kids, and then even with like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and how we're still talking about the themes, the very adult themes now, that this came out in 2005. And then with television, there's always like this push towards progressiveness. Like, I'm really loving She-Ra right now. Like, it is queer television for kids, and it's amazing. And like, of course, only Netflix can do that, but so many kids watch Netflix and they watch She-Ra. And it's just great to have like queer television be mainstream, to have kids watch this and be like, oh wow, I can, like, it's clearly like there's two gay dads on the show, and it's just like very proud and very open, and it's amazing. And so you do need to normalize these things with kids. And so, yeah, I could definitely see like Mike and Brian kind of pushing and expanding on what they already built in the cartoon version in Nickelodeon. And this is Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon was probably like, you can't go this way. Like, you're already tiptoeing on genocide. You can't do anymore.
Yeah, even with The Legend of Korra, I mean, there was a lot of backlash with what they wanted to do and portray, and there was a lot of limitations on what they could do. So we definitely
after it left TV, it was just on the internet.
I mean, but even at that point where it's just like we know that Mike and Brian, they had these ideas, they have these visions for their characters to be real people.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I definitely see, I'm for sure, like I believe that they're gonna like flesh out these stories and make them real people and
Yeah.
real stories.
Yeah.
And it is important to write minorities in it. It's important to write all of these like queer issues. It would be interesting if they introduced queer characters in like the first season, or maybe later in Avatar, that they couldn't like in the past.
Right. I'd be super down into that. Also, even like gender bending some characters.
Yes.
Why does Boomy have to be an old man? Make Boomy an old woman. Or just like anything, right?
That's
like,
why,
there's.
I'm so excited.
There's obviously some characters that they're not gonna touch. Like they're not gonna touch Aang, Katara, Zuko, Toph, like that main cast of characters. But the further out we go, like,
Yeah.
like why does it matter? You know?
Anything is possible.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for coming on the show. You want to tell everybody where they can find you one last time?
Oh, yeah. Beyond Betting Podcast, you can find us on social media, Spotify, iTunes. I also have the episodes on our website, too, if you can't really, like, go on any of these platforms. And then I also put a downloaded version. So, I don't know if you guys are into downloading episodes. You could do that, too. Yeah, Beyond Betting Podcast.
Awesome. Well.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no,
Of
thanks
course.
for coming. It's we've been trying to get more into podcasting with the other podcasters. So it's always fun to like have people on the show and just give us a little bit of a different vibe here. So.
And then I'm excited to bring you on my podcast. That'll be super fun.
Yes.
Oh yeah. When is that again?
It's I'll tell you.
Soon.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Well, until then and beyond, my name's Chandler.
My name's Tony.
And we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.